All right, we're back and recording the edit process now. I do a basic kind of contrast and adjustment. Let me go back to the normal one right here for a second. And I'm going to go ahead and edit this one. And it applies a basic edit that I always start off with, which is a brightening of a center. It adds a little exposure vignette, but I change that frequently. I just like that as a starting point for my work. Now, the way that this editing suite works is that it gives you lenses to actually use to change the looks, films to use, flashes to add your basic crop and straightening, exposure, clarity and definition, and I'll tell you what the difference of those are in a second. Highlight and shadow control, vibrancy, fade, which I never use the fade. Tone curves, which are more advanced. Vignette, texture grain, depth of field, which is one of my favorites. And temperature and tint for color control. Now, every different app is going to stylize what it does in terminology that seems unique to it. But the more you play with different apps, you'll find that even as if one calls it clarity and the other one calls it haze reduction, then you're going to find they're the same things. For example, clarity really reduces visual haze, where definition adds contrast to edges of things. And I'll show you what that looks like differently in the suite as we go through it. So I usually go and select my lens first. And the default lens on mine is this one here, which is called the Jane lens. So if I want to see it without any lens, I can click there. If I want to apply a different lens, this is called the John S lens. And these lenses actually often come from historical cameras or historical lens makers, or they have certain looks that they attribute to them. And you can see that some of them radically shift your picture, but you can turn these down and have really mild to moderate effects on things. Like that warmed up the concrete. If you take it away, you'll see how cool the concrete gets. Here we start warming up our light tones in this particular lens. And of course, as you work with more lenses, this is a pinhole camera, for example, because the image tends to get distorted through pinhole cameras. You end up having some favorites. There's crazy lenses on this one, like this and this, which slice up your picture into a bunch of different things. And toy lenses from toy cameras, which are pretty interesting and fun to play with. This is one of my favorite lenses, and it's looking pretty good on this. This is the Lowy lens. This is looking pretty good on this particular one. Let me show you the difference without and then with. So it's still cool concrete, but you'll notice it's brightened up our lights some and added contrast to the lighter areas. Some give special effects of different kinds. And, when I'm really bored, I'll start going back to the Hipsmatic website or app and start buying new looks and new lenses that I'll play with. I often use a lot of different apps together, and I'll show you. Ooh, I like that one a lot. That is a nice one, the Smith lens. I like how it's giving me the focal kind of vignetting where it's out of focus in strange areas. I like that. I could turn it down to get some more accurate detail. I'm liking it. That's a little green. I think if we choose the right film with this one, we might get an interesting effect. So let's go to film. And there's all sorts of different films on here. Many of them were actually films historically. And some of my favorites are this one. This is one of my favorites for doing monochrome work, or work that looks like old coffee stained or printed on like thick paper stock and dirty. I love and it's obvious, it's called the Love 81 film too. I love this color though. It might be the one that I end up going with to a degree on this one. It's definitely going to be in the running. If I went black and white, there's choices for that. Some of them don't seem to make much difference, and then some of them seem to make pretty radical difference. This is one of those that tends to be pretty different here. This is copying what was known as autochromes we talked about in the history section of class. This is copying wet plate photography like we talked about also in class. So you can actually get some of these older looks from these algorithms that mimic different film looks. It's pretty interesting kind of stuff. Now this one, I'm still leaning towards that love one I was looking at before. That's got a nice quality to it, nice quiet, kind of quiet visual quality to it. I think I want some more true white in that concrete though. So I'm gonna go back and go to my love, check out it on some more extreme settings. Now here are some other controls. I can control how much texture it adds to the image. See, here you'll notice it gets dirtier around the edges because this is mimicking a plate quality, or you can turn that down. I can also control grain here. See how grainy the quality of this image gets when I do that? Add the texture to it. It creates quite a different visual effect. So, like I told you, I think grain is a visual element that we use in photography now to create certain kind of emotional and physical reactions from the viewer. Some of them even subconscious to the viewer themselves. Not sure I want it on this particular image though. So I like this combo for now, but I'm going to come in and check out some flashes on it. The flashes will greatly, you can see really greatly in that case, increase contrast a lot. Oh, I'm liking the pop of the purple on that particular setting. That is pretty great to me. So I'm liking that. That's definitely going to be in the running. That's moody, but not what I want. Too blue for me. A lower setting of this has a certain nice visual quality to it also. That's got an older feeling, almost more nostalgic looking compared to this one over here, which starts getting kind of more graphic and contrasty and poppy. That makes for a difficult choice there. And then this goes and complicates it too. Think this is gonna win. I'm loving that. And I go with my gut a lot editing. I don't second guess myself, and then sometimes I end up at the end not liking it and just doing something different. That's the nice thing, is I can start this process over and over again till I get it the way I want it. So let's talk about, here's our exposure control. I mentioned this in our lesson earlier today, the plus and minus. This would be like exposure compensation. So if I wanted to brighten up, I would add. If I wanted to tone down, I would take away. And I like what's going on in the tone down there in the background. That's super moody right there. I'm actually going to go with that. I'm liking it. I'm going to come in and now go to my highlight shadows. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take don't want to turn down my highlights, but I'm going to bring up my shadows some. Not that much, some. Oh, it's creating a nice eerie light in this particular image. I'm really, really liking. So all of this I'm doing right here on my phone. You can see that. I'm going to come in and let me tell you the difference now between clarity. So watch the dehaze quality. See how everything picks up a little contrast, and you can certainly see around the edges on this particular look how strong that effect becomes. I'm going to clarify a little. about there. And now definition looks a lot different. Look at definition. Notice how around every edge now it's a hyper strong contrast. Now, there are times this visually is incredibly powerful, and I really like what it's doing up in the top left hand corner of the picture, right above the concrete to the plant there. It's really visually interesting. Now, somewhere turned down, though, we can get a little bit of pop, but not so much as to make us go, ah, like spaghetti down there. But now, look at that. That's like almost like a little bird nest there. So, digging that. Now, I'm going to see if I can affect my. Not going to get to tone curves on this one. Vibrancy is really strength of color. So, it's kind of similar to saturation, but not quite the same. So, our vibrancy, you can see if I turn it up, watch the purples in particular in those flowers. You can see how much more they kind of pop. If I turn them down, you'll see everything's a little more muted, but not free of color like desaturation would be doing. So I'm going to add a little vibrancy right there. I like what it's doing on the shadow on the edge. Going to come in. Tonal curves, we'll talk on other pictures that will be more important, but this is a way of controlling the way contrast looks in individual areas. It can radically alter your pictures. Even with a little bit of change, it can radically alter them. Look at that. So there's times I really use my curves for special effects. But sometimes when you curve, it's just a little tiny change that you make to try to affect certain areas. Like a little curve that way might be good on this picture. A little teeny one. I don't know why my voice is like that when I say teeny. But that's a really teeny white. Now, the cool thing is I can come in and curve individual colored channels on this. So watch what's going to happen to my bluish purple right there. Come up here. Start bringing green into the highlights. Taking green out of the highlights right there. Everything getting lavendered up. Now, gonna come back here or come here. Now I'm gonna undo the green one because I don't want it. That change that I made there. This little bottom arrow will go back through each step that you made. So now it's back to the normal. If I wanted to go back one, I kind of like that change. Let's go back. Hard to say. Maybe a tinier change like that might be adequate. Right there. Ooh, that's interesting. So then vignette is going to be darkening around the edges. There's not a lot. Well, it makes a pretty good difference on this one. I don't want it as extreme as we had. There we go. Now, temperature and tint. On some films, this makes almost no difference. It depends on the film, on this particular app, how much change we'll get. So now I'm changing, this is Kelvin temperature. So here I'm actually, even though my picture is getting bluish, I'm actually bringing the Kelvin temperature down in this particular case because it's like we're doing subtractive color mixing or old school printing it's trying to copy. So here, though, I can add my reds or I can add greens to help offset some of my colors. I'm going to start seeing how natural or unnatural I want things. So sometimes I just go way out and see what it looks like. Go all the way to the extremes of everything. Sometimes you find little things you never expected to find, like this weird, I don't know, otherworldly looking picture now. And then sometimes you realize you just kind of want to be a little more planted in reality. So that's looking a lot better right there to me. I love what the cement's doing in the central area. Excellent. Now, any other things here? Let me show you what depth of field does. I think it works on this particular film. So this is going to change focus to just a little area. So it's going to start blurring some. It doesn't work a lot on this particular film. Some films have preset vignettes of focus, and this must be one of those, because if I throw it off, yeah, it doesn't make any change. Well, that changed some. You can see actually in the concrete some change. So let's see. If we go real tight on this. Oh yeah, you definitely see some difference there. I call this the dreamy filter, because that's really what it starts doing, is creating pretty dreamy looking imagery. And I'm really liking that right there. So I'm going to hit yes to that. It's going to change my picture to the edited version. I'm going to favorite it so I can find it for posting to you guys. I'm going to go back to the photos here. And this is one that I took at Target earlier. This is an example of what I'm going to ask you to do on your discussion this week. Is I want you to take a photo walk and take a picture of something that hasn't really changed, and take a picture of something that has really changed, that shows you that of what's happened during this situation we're currently in. So start thinking about that. It'll be listed on the discussion board also. Thanks for everybody's discussion inputs also. Pretty awesome. Excellent stuff there. I'm not going to really edit that one, but I'm going to... I fell in love with that edited one so much that I don't think this one's going to cut the mustard for me at all now. I definitely think that's the winner for me, so I'm leaving that at that. And then I'm going to come and find... Those are for some future stuff. Don't look yet. So we're to the palettes now. Let's look at the different palette shots. Interesting for sure. I really started liking the closer ups like that. That was the shot I really visually took me when I took it. I showed you guys. Really liking that one too. Got some other close-ups, and then I'm digging my shot on the ground. So, of all the palette shots, I think I need to edit this one for sure, because it just got that quality to it that I really like. Now, one of the cool things with Hipsmatic 2 is people upload their looks, and you can upload your looks, and you guys can trade looks with people. Kind of pretty cool setup and community that they've been building. Geeky photographers like myself. So let's go through our lenses, and I actually have an idea of one that I might want to use for this. Not sure if I want to negate any of the focus, though. That's my question. So I may go... That was one of them I was thinking of, but with a little less. I like that right there. I'm liking what it's doing to the color on the right side in the palette. It's kind of mixing them up more. So I'm going to try that one to start. I'm going to go right into my film choice, and I'm thinking I'm going to, go with one of these. These ones I don't actually use as often. I got them more recently, so I've been investigating them more. That's interesting look for sure. A little too over-processed, I think, for this shot. No. Maybe. I was thinking of this one though. I'm liking that. Let's get rid of that. Definitely. That's the one I'm going to use. So now I'm going to come and look at flashes. I kind of go through everything every time. I don't really skip too often. Sometimes I'll have something in my head right away that I want to do. But often that's just, I usually don't edit very well if I've got a lot of predetermined things in my head. So I'm going to go and turn this up exposure-wise because the flash kind of killed a little of the contrast. So I'm going to bring that back up. Definitely want to clarify this one. Might add some definition. Let's look at let's crank it up and see what it looks like. It's not making a huge difference. My bokeh on that lens drops this out so much there's not much edge to add contrast to. Let me turn up my shadows. I often do that. That's not doing it on this film though. So there's one thing I learned right there about this. Wow, no shadow control on that film. Definitely see if the vibrance does anything. Nope, little bit. And I'm liking it turned down some. Temperature and color are definitely gonna not probably be heavily, yeah. You can see some change there. Ooh, I like how that purples up some. But I don't want my white to get out of control. Don't need any of that. I like that. Maybe a little less here. There we go. It's almost like turned the wood into old blue jeans or something. And I think that's about all I want to do on that. Let me see if I need to straighten anything. No, looks good. So click yes to that. Favorite that to post. And then maybe that one. Let's see. I think one of just all of them, yeah. Like that. Yeah. And that's kind of interesting. That's super blue. Starting to cut out on some focus you can see on that lens. Oh, that one, I'm kind of liking that. Get some of that purple out of it, some of that magenta. I was thinking of this one before, but I don't know. I like what it does with color, but I don't like what it's doing with focus. Now I can choose to not use any lens. I can go back and turn the lenses off. I tend to like to work with this visual quality that it does. I'll show you some more advanced editing as we go through this rest of the semester. I'll show you how I use other programs in addition to this one to actually use some of the weirder things that you've seen pop up. Like, let me find this one right here. It's pretty weird. Turn that all the way up. But some of the weirder colorings you can get when we add it as a layer, like that one, that's the one I was thinking of. So I could use this as a layer, then go into Photoshop Mix, which I'll show you in another time, and then blend layers together of different photos to cause different effects. So you start to learn a lot. I like this one. I'm really liking the Raymark right here. Want clarity, not that much clarity. Don't think I want definition too much. That could get a little wacky looking. Yeah, that's getting wacky. So I'm turning that off. I'm going to come in and brighten up the shadows, but I'm going to start turning down a little of the highlights on this one, about 50. Yeah, there we go. Now I want to check out my films, because I'm thinking I'm going to go with the love on this one again, because I like the contrast that it's going to give me. It's one of my favorites. I'm going to actually go back into the film, and I'm going to go to its texture and turn that way down. Look at the grain. I like some of the graininess in this shot. But it's a tough decision to make, the grain one is. Bring up my shadows a little more since I used the love film, which darkens considerably. Then not much more I want to do to this. I want to turn my vibrancy up some, because really this is a color image, but not quite that much. There we go. I'm going to come in, and I think my color and temperature are okay. Little micro adjustments there, that's good. And I'm liking that. So I'll post these shots for you to see, the edits, and some future stuff we'll be looking at as we tackle aperture control and the amazing things aperture can do for you also coming up soon. But hope you've enjoyed the edits. I'm going to have one little more section after this of just debriefing, just to go over some of the concepts that we're talking about and just solicit some feedback from you in the comments. So thank you for looking at this, and happy photography.